Hey guys, this is Justin. Hello and welcome to another video. So this is a fun one. We got a bit of a two-parter. Today I'm going to start off by talking about the new Star Wars Battlefront news. Then later on I'm going to give my brief impressions on the Bad Batch. I've went ahead and put the two sections down below timestamped, so if you're only interested in one, well, there you go. Alright, so the Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection was announced today, and regarding platform, there was initially some confusion about this. It was talked about for the Nintendo Switch and also the Sony systems, but it will be coming to Xbox, PlayStation 4 and 5, the Switch, and Steam. Unfortunately, it seems like there will be no crossplay, but what we will get is both games with 64-player multiplayer, some up-res textures, and just honestly, probably a better overall experience. Some of you may remember, I actually played through Star Wars Battlefront 2 on a stream for the channel. The game is still super fun, but it's kind of janky on modern systems, so I'm really excited for that. There was also a bit of confusion because some of the marketing materials from PlayStation in particular talked about newly added features or content. To be clear, it seems like the only real new content is platform specific, like things which weren't originally on the PlayStation 2 version of Battlefront 2 can now be played on the PS4 or 5. What we're really getting is the definitive versions of these games, and versions which should honestly, I'd imagine, be pretty popular online upon release. And we don't have to wait that long. It comes out March 14th. It'll be $35 American dollars. And according to StarWars.com, it will also support the Steam Deck, which I'm pretty excited about. Honestly, what I found most remarkable here is just the level of fan interest across the board. All the Star Wars content creators I follow have talked about how this is some of the highest viewed videos they've put out recently, which is awesome. I mean, I'm not going to be too dramatic, but maybe Star Wars and Disney will take notice if we do see a lot of people buy this game and a ton of renewed interest. I'm certainly going to be on. Just hopefully they did a good job with the port. It was done by Aspire. I've talked about them in the past before. I think their work is at the very least usually serviceable. We could talk all about the KOTOR remake stuff, but we don't have to. When it comes to ports, they do a good job. They've done the Knights of the Old Republic games, the strict ports, as well as the Star Wars Jedi and other games which were ported to the Switch. I will say, as someone who played on console back in the day, I'm excited to play some full 64-player multiplayer games. I believe on console it was limited to 32 players, and back then, to be honest, I didn't have Xbox Live anyway, so I only really played with my buddies and a bunch of very, very stupid AI. One pretty neat difference, though, I'd say some of the only real new content for the game is that hero assault mode where everyone's a hero, sort of like heroes versus villains from Battlefront 2, the new Battlefront 2, but a little more free range, will now be playable on all maps, which is pretty cool. I also hope that the game is open for modding. One thing that I talked about potentially doing is maybe some sort of Battlefront 2 tournament. For those who don't know, I've previously thrown pretty big cash tournaments for both Star Wars Squadrons and Halo Infinite. Maybe there's a way we can do something with Star Wars Battlefront 2 now that the definitive classic collection is being released, and online play will probably be more reliable than with the initial releases. One thing I wonder, if these do sell really well, could we potentially see content from the PSP games like Renegade Squadron make their way to the other platforms? I think that would be so cool because it's content that really very few people have ever played. Like, these games, you know, you may have missed some features depending on which platform you were on, but they were widely available. Every single one of my friends had a copy of both the first and second game at their house, as did I. So everybody, just make sure you get your grandmother to buy a copy for your friend, tell your neighbor. But anyway, I wanted to talk now about the Bad Batch, the other big news for the day. Unfortunately, the Bad Batch went back to the middle of the night releasing Wednesday morning. I'm not super mad about it, but I would have enjoyed, you know, a watch party, especially because we had 3 episodes here. The first 3 episodes of the Bad Batch I thought were really good. Just generally, I think of the big 3 animated shows, I guess if you throw Resistance in there, the big 4, the Bad Batch is certainly the most underrated. I don't think it has the same highs as either the Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels in particular. Don't think about that too much because it will make you angry at me. I just think overall that the general quality has been extremely consistent. And there have been a few standout episodes as well. I think Crosshair's story has really culminating in the Outpost last year has just been phenomenal. And I gotta say, I was surprised when they announced that season 3 would be the end. I thought these characters had a lot ahead of them. But jumping into the first 3, we've got a compelling start to the season. And I will say a lot of YouTubers YouTubers or journalists actually got the entire first half of the season. So far, I've only seen what you guys have, so no worry about spoilers here. I thought it was pretty clear, just based on episode titles, that we were going to see an escape from Mount Tantus fairly early on. However, what I expected was to see Omega rescue Crosshair, Crosshair escapes, but Omega is somehow captured during the escape, and he's got to join up with the Bad Batch to return and rescue her. Obviously, that's not quite how things worked out. So the first episode is called Confined. We're introduced more to Mount Tantus on Wayland, and I gotta say, I really enjoy the dynamics of this place. It is outright evil, something we saw better in episode 3, but things are different than I expected. For one, I did not think Crosshair would be fully broken, but over 100 days, I guess, will do that to you. And we do know that both Omega and Crosshair were there for, I think someone on Twitter said 115 days when counting her marks on the wall. I thought his dejectedness was just a front, but no, he's in a bad place, and so is Omega. Emiri, who we saw at the end of season 2, is not friendly despite also being a female clone. She's obviously pretty heavily indoctrinated, and it's really just Nala Se who's friends with Omega here. And that was one of my big surprises sort of about this whole arc. I thought it was pretty clear the Empire wanted Omega because they realized she was different in some way, but rather she was a tool to make Nala Se work. She does have special abilities and seems to be the first clone with really that maintained M count, or honestly probably greater M count than Jango, but that's obviously only discovered by the bad guys at the end of episode 3, so they'll be chasing her again, just for different reasons. I like the stuff with Batcher. It's fun that we'll have another little critter hanging around. But moving on, we get back to the guys in episode 2, and I also like this one. We see that they've been looking for Omega for a while, they've been unsuccessful, and I like the dynamic of the young clones they've found. Just generally, I'd say Star Wars, you've had enough big monsters over the last couple of years, but hey, this one was fun at least. It was nice to see the idea of brotherhood and camaraderie being brought back in a very dark time in the universe. The standout episode to me, however, was Shadow of Tantus. This features the attempted escape, and more importantly, the rest is just action really, Emperor Palpatine, and we're starting to see now how Palpatine's machinations are connecting to the Bad Batch, which itself is serving as connective tissue for a bunch of different Star Wars projects. Obviously, even at this point, Palpatine is working on his survival plan, his contingency in the case of death, and it recognizes that it's the single most important thing to secure the continuation of the Empire. And Hemlock is just like an excited schoolgirl when all this is happening, and I can't blame him. You got old Chief complimenting you. It must feel good after you've went to evil medical school. For a show that's been all about cloning and has been dropping these hints, I do expect there to be one fairly big revelation this season. Overall, great start to the season. I'm curious to see where the show goes from here. Just looking at next episodes, we have a different approach coming out February 28th, then the return on March 6th, followed by infiltration and extraction. So I'm guessing we will see a return to Mount Tantus, maybe to attempt to save Nala Se.